What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. And today, Bitcoin is doing exactly what it's done for the last 5 months. Yesterday, we had a deep fall over here on the Bitcoin price chart. We'll talk about that right here with Bitcoin. We'll take a peek over there at the altcoin market. We'll take a look at the altcoin market cap and talk about a few things going on there. Seemingly right on cue, Bitcoin continues to follow what it's been doing for the last 5 months. And really, at this point, it's almost 5.5 months now that Bitcoin has been mirroring what it did in the bear market of 2018. As much as I want to sit here and say, hey, it's going to eventually break away from this thing and do something different, it still just continues to follow it right along. And I think the thing that's most remarkable about this has not only been that from a structural perspective, it's been following what it did back in 2018, even from a time perspective, it's been doing what it did back in 2018. Really, the biggest deviation in time that has happened here when we stretch this fractal out to match has been this time period right in here, and that's not very much. Otherwise, from a time perspective, everything has really kind of been right on cue, including this fall that we've had right here in the last 24 hours. In yesterday's video, we were talking about, hey, decision time, right? And well, is it going to continue to follow it? And sure enough, it seemingly has. So we'll talk about this right in here. The thing is, if we kind of shift our way up in here and see what's been going on, if we're in something similar like that, it seems like we're more so in a time period like this right now for Bitcoin. There's still another dip to go on in there. We've talked about this, how, I'm not a trend line guy. I very, very rarely ever use trend lines. But we do know that in the fractal, that's what it was going back for. It was going back for a trend line back test. So I won't be surprised to see if that's what ends up occurring in here. That trend line back test is down there around 38,000, 37,500. If it continues to follow this thing, and I keep issuing that because I'm just not a believer that it's going to continue to do it, that it's got to break away at some point. But until it does, the blueprint is there, right? But what would it also indicate, right? So if we just pretend it's going to continue to follow this thing and play along with it, it would indicate that a retracement would happen sometime in March. That's if it continues to follow this thing, right? I always say I'm terrible at predicting time. It's nearly impossible. I haven't found anybody capable of doing it accurately, consistently. It's one thing to get something right one time. Show me somebody who can do it 5 times. I'll stop doing YouTube videos for a week and go watch that person for a whole week to understand how they're doing it. But we do know from a time perspective and from a level perspective, we've been following this. So if it continues to, we're looking at March in here for a retracement to come in. Now, for my personal exit plans, if you know, I've been in crypto for several years. I established my own exit plan a long time ago. It was always about getting up to these price levels. For the people who have been with the channel for a long time, it's no surprise that I've turned bearish on Bitcoin up here in the 60,000s. It was in February of last year that I sold my Bitcoin between 45 to 58,000. I sold 65% of my Bitcoin and established what all my exit plan would look like, right? That I would expect that we'd have some big 50% fall. We'd go barely set a new all-time high, have a big fall, and then into a retrace. And so into the retrace, which would be something like that if this continues to follow, based on the things that we've seen happen throughout the history of the cryptocurrency market, that's the best opportunity for the altcoin market to run. So regardless of what happens with the altcoin market, if it's running or if it's not running, into that retracement is where I have to start taking some longer term profits on the market. That's not going to be perfect for everybody. I know what happens during those time periods. People are screaming at me, you're wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and start laying down the groundwork for it now, because if that happens in a month from right now, you all knew it. It won't come as a surprise. Now, my hopes, my dreams, my analysis, my expectations, and with my fingers crossed, total 3, or the altcoin market excluding Bitcoin and excluding Ethereum, is rampaging into that moment. I know it's hard to visualize that right now, but I have to stick to that analysis and that belief. And it's for the people who have been around for the last couple of years who watched as we were in the C19 chaos and Bitcoin was, $5,000 and me posting charts saying, look, this is my plan. This is how I'm going to do things. Bitcoin's going to get up here to, $70,000 when we're up in the $45,000 to $58,000 range. I'm taking profits on it. I'm rotating into the altcoins and then into Bitcoin's retrace after it tops, after a 4.236 extension. It's the best chance for the altcoin market to run. And if my targets aren't getting hit, that's still the place where I've got to start taking some stuff off the table. So for people who are new to the market, hearing all that, you're like, okay, yeah, sure you did, buddy. But this has been my long-term plan. So when we get up in there, that is where I'm going to be pulling stuff off the market. I, of course, will share that with you guys. And just know, this is not me pulling everything out of the market. It's just time for me to start pulling some stuff from the market. My hopes are that we do see another rise happen over here in Total 3. But you do have to understand, I've been here for a long time. I spent a lot of time studying this market and was smart enough, or dumb enough, as you could say, to be accumulating down here during these time periods for years. I started my YouTube channel back in November of 2019 during this time period right here. You can see Total 3, the altcoin market, excluding Bitcoin and excluding Ethereum, was down there at $45 billion. We went through the C19 sell-off together, and at that time, Total 3 dipped all the way down to $27 billion. So imagine the entire altcoin market, not Bitcoin, not Ethereum, only being $27 billion, $28 billion. Cardano right now is $34 billion. So imagine every other altcoin out there representing less than just what Cardano is. I've been long in this market the whole way up. And for my personal exit plans, it's always told me once Bitcoin hits its top that I believe to be the top, and as we go into the retracement, I've either 65% exited the altcoins that I have based on their measurements, or that's the time where I have to make the decision to pull the plug on some of them. Now, it's hard to see that right now. I know these altcoins are down, but earlier this week, we went through it. We showed what happens at the end of cycles, right? All those altcoin seasons that we saw happen in 2018, those ones that skyrocketed and went crazy, all of those alt seasons were anywhere from 25 to 40 days. So it's not like it was just 90-day, 100-day grind up that was super cool and everybody just had time to think about it. No, it all happened very quick. And while this shows, hey, this would be happening in, approximately 30 days if that thing continued to happen, there's still enough time for those altcoins to do that. For example, XRP right here went up a total of 1,500% in a matter of 27 days. But prior to that 27-day period, there was nothing indicating that that was going to be coming over here on XRP, outside of it being the end of the cycle. And I do know that's what the feeling is like prior to those moments happening. Take it off log, and then whoop, off and away it goes. And in 27 days, there you have it. And like we showed earlier this week, it wasn't just XRP that did that. I mean, you got IOTA right here. Here's what it all looked like. And then suddenly off and away it went, up 1,500% in 31 days. Cardano right here, up 4,600% in 40 days. Bitcoin Cash, same story. Huge skyrocket happening in here, up 1,300% or so in 57 days. Stellar Lumens, up 2,300% in 40 days. And Verge, up 3,000% in 10 days. So the point of all of that is not to be like, yeah, hey, we've got 1,500% rises, 3,000% rises happening in 10 days, right? 100x, 100x. That's not the point. The point is all of those happened in those short time windows, right? None of those happened over the course of like 100 days. It was all this really short time window stuff, and all those tops came in at the retracement. So it's not that there isn't enough time for it to happen, because that's about the amount of time that it takes. And if this fractal continues and we look at how much time we have until here, that's 32 days. And if we zoom in just a little bit in here, right, and let's say that, it's going to be right here on this date right here, February 21st, right? Today is what, the 18th, so the 21st, that's where, the clock starts ticking, right? That's where it's like, all right, man, the bottom is in. That's how much time you have in there. How many days do you have, right? You've got, 30 days from that time period right there. And well, as we saw, XRP went from 20 cents to $3.30, depending on what exchange you're on, at a minimum $3.30. All that happened in 27 days. And this is what my fingers are crossed for if this fractal does continue to play out. But either way, when we get up in there, I've got to start making decisions that it's time to start pulling some stuff out of the market. But we'll talk more about that as the time comes. I'm just kind of laying the groundwork right now. Don't be surprised when I start talking about it. I don't think anybody's going to complain if we have full-blown alt season happening, 30 days. over the course of the next 30 to 35 days, right? But like I've mentioned, right, I'm still so skeptical of this. It's, in the past, I've spent time looking at fractals and doing that kind of stuff. But, over the time, you just kind of realize these things eventually break. They do eventually change. And like we've talked about with the inverse price chart of Bitcoin, in most of the examples that we have, this thing goes up to something like this right here, which flip us off of the inverse scale, and you see that there's a new low that gets set. So I'll show those to you again really quick, that we've compared what these reversal structures look like on many different charts, and we're going to go through 3 of them really quickly. But that when we look at the gold to silver ratio, what has happened here for Bitcoin right in here is similar to what occurred in here. And the current location we're at for Bitcoin right in here is just like what happened with this dip down in here, in which it does go on to set a new level. And we're kind of watching this happen live here with the gold to silver ratio. And, this is over a longer time period than what Bitcoin is. But you can see the unbelievable similar structures happening in here. And we'll look at more than just the gold to silver ratio. We can even compare this to the actual bottom of Bitcoin back in 2018, and that our current location is similar to something like this, in which Bitcoin does go on to set a new level after this time period, which is like us coming off of this level right in here for Bitcoin right in here. The same thing goes for the XRP price chart, another one that we monitored live. And this is where I introduced all of this to the YouTube channel back in January of 2021, that we can even see that happening in here, right? There was still another move after the big first fall back. There was still one more move back. And then if this structure is what's playing out in here, and if Bitcoin's going to deviate away from this 5.5-month fractal that it's got going on, then all the examples point to this long retrace that comes in here, structured like an A, B, C correction, which we can flip this back to our standard scale so everybody can get a better idea. You flip it back up to how you're looking at it like this, and that's what we're talking about. So while Bitcoin is still following all of this like it is, I've got to start getting my preparations ready to say, hey, if it's going to do this, well, then we're about to complete all conditions for my exit plans. And I've got to start getting ready to take stuff off the table when we go back into that retracement. But I'm also not naive enough to believe that the market has to keep following this thing. And it's crazy to say it because it's been 5.5 months. It's nuts. I've never seen anything like it before in Bitcoin before, where it'll follow something for 5.5 months. It's insane. But these things eventually do deviate. And so my 2 thought processes are, all right, I've got to be prepared for this to play out. And that means there's not much time. But I also know I've been following this inverse price chart for a long time. And each time we see these things play out, this is the moment where things are different, where if this actually follows, it shows that Bitcoin sets a new low and a longer retracement comes in here, like so. So over the course of the next couple of days, I think we'll get some answers, because the fractal is telling us that we should be getting some answers. If this thing is going to continue doing what it's doing, then it looks like the low is coming in sometime over the weekend or early next week. And at that point, with the amount of time that we have left, you would think we would see the altcoins starting to move in big ways. So pretty crazy that we're still seeing this thing follow itself after this much time, but we can see if it continues where we're at. Now let's move over to the total altcoin market cap, total 3 excluding Bitcoin. Yesterday on the video, we were talking about counting out the wave structures, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look like a standard crashing structure. But something happened with this chart since yesterday. TradingView did some type of update that has completely changed the structure. We can look back at the video that we were doing yesterday, and we can see the top of where this came in here, just shy of 740 billion. We can see how this low way up here is at 750 billion. Notice there's been some type of change to this chart now to show that there's been a hold right here, that this got up to 750 billion. Which is different from what we're charting yesterday. And you can see this is on the 1-hour chart right here. And I've got us on the 1-hour chart right here, but the structure of this has changed. It's also removed the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that we had counted within here. Also, another thing is we can look at this low that was set down in here. This was set at like 680 billion over here below this February 2nd top right in here. And that this was adjusted and that it was not that low. So this chart has changed. And it doesn't look the same to me as it did yesterday while we were charting it. And that what we see happening in here is that there's a 5-wave Elliott wave happening in here with 1, 2, 3, 4 getting stopped out at wave 1 and 5. Easy to say in hindsight, now that here we are in these last couple of minutes, this thing is starting to break down now, but everything is clear in here that we're now in wave 5 of this. But this chart has updated to change the way that it was looking. The tops were changed, the resistances were changed, the lows were changed. So essentially they moved this up higher, they moved this up higher, and we did not dip down this low. So now we're finally dipping down to this February 2nd low here, which as we could see over here on this chart at this time period, we were already below that level. So I think we're in the final impulse here as we see Bitcoin wrapping this thing up. So we'll lighten this fractal up a little bit and take some of these things off the screen. And what we know is in that fractal, it was a trend back test. So right now, currently, the trend sits down here at about 38,200. And right now, if it's going to continue to follow this, you can kind of see this was kind of a pause out period for a few days before it eventually went down and got down there. And if it, the more days it takes, the further down that trend is. So at this time, merely based on this, it's looking like somewhere around 37,500 to 38,000. And then questions start getting answered because if that's the bottom, if that's the beginning of this big retracement coming in here, I would fully expect to see the altcoins going during that time. But if it doesn't stop there at 38 or 37.5 and it starts doing the thing we've monitored for several months, almost a year at this point on the YouTube channel showing this, is that if we start getting something more along the lines of this, then it means we're in for a much longer time period. So a lot of those questions are kind of getting answered here in the next week. Either Bitcoin's going to continue following this fractal like it has for 5.5 months, and it gives 30 days for those altcoins to be able to go on a rampage into Bitcoin's retracement, or Bitcoin changes structure and deviates away from the fractal and begins a longer, grueling ABC style correction. At least these are my hypotheses, these are my theories. The market will dictate the answers. And while we kind of caught a little bit of live volatility happening in here, just in the 15-minute time period, we saw Bitcoin dip down there to approximately 39,600, and here we are back at 40,685, right? Which is similar to just kind of the bouncing around stuff we saw happen down in here before it went on to have that final move. So throughout the weekend, this is the thing we'll be looking for, right? So 18th, 19th, 20th, it looks like, if that continued, it looks like we'd have kind of a quiet weekend, then go into the beginning of the week, have a little chaos right there at the beginning of the week. And then if it continues, off and away we go. So definitely a super interesting time for the cryptocurrency market right now. I'll be keeping a close eye on it throughout the weekend. You guys can catch me over there on Twitter throughout the weekend. I will be posting over there for sure if anything wild is going on. Otherwise, I hope that you guys have a great weekend. Thank you so much for watching my channel. If you're looking for something to do throughout the weekend, of course, you can check out bcbacker.com, which is a course that I put together where I deep dive into the previous cryptocurrency bull runs, the previous Bitcoin bull runs, and the previous altcoin market cycles, tying them all together to show how the cryptocurrency market has worked in the past. I talk about my personal exit plans in here, and I teach you how to set up your own charts and your own indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro so you can do your own charting. The most recent market update in here was back there on January 31st, and you could check out all of this educational content over here on bcbacker.com. You can follow me over here on Twitter at bcbacker. And I want to thank you so much for watching my channel. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.